You're watching at the moment?
Good afternoon. On the local markets, as you can see, the commodity prices or the commodity-based stocks are running. Anglo's up about 5%. We're looking at Richmond. It was up about 4% earlier today. They're expected to release third quarter earnings. Watching some of the retailers, Mr. Price due out with earnings next week on the 17th. As with the public holidays, we've got last trade date for the dividend, paying ex-dividend on some shares tomorrow. So Oceana is a dividend, Rhodes Food Group, Tiger Brands have got a R7 dividend tomorrow. So expect those share prices to fall by the value of the dividend. So those are some of the stocks that we'll be following closely today.
All right, and let's talk about those commodities that you were saying were driving the JSE. Firstly, oil yesterday, quite a significant decline. It's looking better today, recovering a little bit, but still languishing at 3-week lows. What's driving oil down? Because that is affecting global markets, certainly.
Oil is certainly very range-bound at the moment, so I don't expect much action from oil in the next 6 months. What's driving the prices at the moment is increased US stockpiles are certainly weighing on the price, and that's what we saw drop around $2 yesterday. But we've got EIA reports, which is a report to let consumers know how many barrels are in circulation. That's due out of the States tomorrow, and that will certainly have an effect on the oil price.
And we're more concerned about the metals after a better run. There has been some concern about commodities for this year. Just tell me a bit about your outlook and why.
I think obviously we've got growth forecasts for many countries have been subdued, especially in the larger consuming nations like China and Japan. That will certainly affect a lot of the metal prices. However, it's also dependent on dollar-denominated price, and that's certainly fluctuating, linked to the Trump and what's going to happen there, because there's all talk about trade boundaries and trade partnerships and tariffs on certain products like steel. So that's certainly going to affect the prices of commodities over the next 6 months. Gold's something to look at because gold's turning into a bit of a safe haven play at the moment. Safe haven is something that traders will use to leverage uncertainty in the market. They'd rather buy into the gold. However, gold's also moving on Lunar New Year's in China, where you see Chinese consumers picking up their gold buying for the New Year's. And so gold's more safe haven, but other commodity prices are moving towards both global uncertainty and also trade talk and trade partnership agreements that need to be ironed out with President-elect Trump coming in.
All right, and we could see that uncertainty be eased or, in fact, rise when he addresses the media tomorrow. A lot of anticipation around that. What is expected and how could it affect the markets?
It's obviously just going to be tone, and also, he had a campaign run that he spoke very vehemently about what he was going to do. We talk about a wall across Mexico, driving out Muslim population in the US. There was a lot of controversy around his campaign in certain topics. So it's going to lead to what his campaign and what his future ambition is and how he's going to drive the leader of the free world. So he's also talked about increase in steel tariffs for China and Mexico into the US. That will affect companies like Ford Motors, who imports a big proportion of its steel. He's been a bit lenient on the banks, so he's trying to inject a bit of flow into the economy. So that's why we've seen Bank of America and some of the banks are running. He's also lenient. The Republicans are generally lenient on pharmaceutical taxes and stuff. That's why we saw some of the pharmaceuticals run on the back of his announcement to become president. So there's a lot of different things that people will be watching, and every country is going to be different. For South Africans watching, we'll be watching the rand dollar. And if there's uncertainty, then you might see a spike in the dollar, affecting the rand hedge stocks locally, because you're going to get dollar strength, rand weakness. You also must be watching the gold price, as the safe haven demand will also move depending on what he says.
And China, is that a big risk? It's already hinted that it doesn't like the way he is defying the one China policy. And of course, our economy is so linked to the Chinese economy.
Yeah, certainly. There's a lot of news going around that they're not happy with the comments coming on Twitter. Trump is very vocal on Twitter, and that's causing, he's very spoken about Chinese relationships with North Korea. The trade thing is a very big thing for a lot of different economies, and I think that's the main focus. We've seen a lot of fluctuation with the Brazilian and the Mexican and a lot of emerging market currencies, which South Africa obviously falls in, and that also linked to Trump and what's happening with the US dollar. So there's a lot of different topics which you could digest, which is going to be affect. China, on the other hand, has big trade relationships with the US, and that's the biggest key, because Trump is coming down hard, saying that Chinese, inverted commas, have been having a free ride. And those trade relationships need to be bed down over the next short term, and I think that's what a lot of foreign investors linked to China will be watching closely.
What does this mean? A big question, Travis, but for the rand, for our market, a lot of volatility, I guess.
I think our rand, there certainly is volatility politically, locally. We've got the volatility there. Our rand surprisingly very range bound on the dollar rand, so I expect it to be range bound in the short term unless Trump comes out with something completely contrasting to what his views are. In terms of the rand against the pound, we've been benefiting from the weakening pound due to the Brexit, so that range is between 16 rand and 18 rand, so also very stable. So yes, there could be a bit of volatility in the currency linked to the election, but at the moment we've certainly seen a bit of a range bound for both the rand dollar and also the rand pound. So I guess it'll be, time will tell what happens. The big thing also leading into this is the Fed. The Fed's thinking about increasing a rate hike 3 times. Over 2017, and that will also coincide with what Trump has and his plan for the future. I think the Fed's rate hikes will have a big effect on emerging market currencies as well as our markets. So if they start to increase the rates in the US, it'll be more favorable for clients in the US to hold money and deposit it in the US rather than look for riskier assets like South African markets. So those key factors, and there are numerous now, will have an effect on our markets going forward.
All right, thank you so much for your analysis. As always, Travis Robson from IG South Africa, and it will begin with Donald Trump tomorrow. Unfortunately, we will have to listen to every word he says now that he's president-elect of the United States.